So, you want to get into the visual effects industry, but you don't know how. And you got a whole lot of questions that people probably aren't giving you very good answers to, or you get multiple answers and you don't really know which one to go with. What software should I learn? What school should I go to? Should I be a specialist or a generalist? What's more valuable to a company? And so on and so forth. Well, I'm going to try to go through a little bit of this and help you out, because I see it popping up all over the place. There's so much out there. Visual effects is getting so big and crazy that it's hard to keep up with, even when you're in it. So let's just kind of go over what your options are, shall we? So first off, you have to make a logical decision. Do you go to college, right? And what are you going to do? Well, if you're going to go to college, yes, you can go to a university. They probably have animation programs. You can take classes. But ultimately, it's going to come down to what you need to learn. Like, what software is the industry using right now that is going to get you on the level where if you walk in their door, you're not going to be completely blindsided by a bunch of shit that you've never seen before. And that depends on what you want to do within the visual effects industry. Now, the important thing is that the VFX industry has pillars: modeling, 3D tracking, roto, animation, rigging, lighting, texturing, and composition. So you can break down each one of those, right? So what software do you need to know inside each one? What do you want to do specifically? If you only want to do animation, then it would be totally fine to stick to 3D Studio Max or Maya. Maya, truthfully, has the better tool set than Max does, but Max is a much faster and easier program to kind of get stuff up and running in a general sense. So a lot of companies are going with Max, and a lot of animators got out of school knowing Maya, and now they're all having to learn Max, and they are very upset about it. Like, not all of them, but a few of them. That's an anecdotal thing. That's something that happens a lot where I work. So in the modeling category, you got a couple of options. Use your program of choice, 3D Studio Max or Maya, totally fine. But on the outskirts, there's other programs too that really help. ZBrush is the top tier modeler. Like, if you're not using Max or Maya and you want to take modeling seriously in the industry, then you absolutely have to learn ZBrush in spite of how terrible its interface is. You just got to bite the bullet and learn how to do it, because that's kind of taken over everything. Move down a step and you go, okay, I model all this stuff, now I want to texture it, so what are my options? Again, same thing. You can do it in ZBrush, but Substance Painter is running that game. That game is owned by Algorithmic right now. Their texturing software is just super next level stuff. It's really, really impressive. It's fast and efficient, and people are just using it all over the place. It's easy to pick up and learn. There's no reason why you shouldn't add that to the list. If you want to be a person who does rotoing, I don't know why you would ever want that or to do that to yourself, but maybe you're some sort of masochist deep down. But honestly, you shouldn't count on that, because Silhouette exists, After Effects, Mocha can help out with tracking, and generally it's a lesser kind of skill because a lot of that work is being outsourced right now to other countries. You know, because it's cheap and they can get it turned around like really, really quickly. And then it doesn't put a burden on the artist, right? You don't want to sit down a really good artist that knows particles and all this crazy stuff, and you can really, really bring a shot together and then say, yeah, but even though you've got 4 days to do that, the first 2 days you're going to have to be rotoing because, you know, them's the breaks, right? That's not a really good use of your artist's time, so companies have gotten really into the habit of just sending that stuff off, and then it comes back, and then the artist gets to only worry about what they need to worry about. And again, rigging, it's the same story. Maya's got a really good rigging suite. Max has a really good rigging suite. Animation's easier in Maya, though, so a lot of people prefer everything to be done in Maya. The rigs can't be transferred between one another, so whatever you got is just what you're stuck with. And you can't really do much more than that. But what you can do is you can go onto these free 3D model websites online that have entire video game characters just kind of laying around and stuff, and you can pull them in, and some of them have their entire rigs set up inside, so you can see how games do it. Rigging is kind of a whole rabbit hole. Like, it's deep and crazy, and like, you don't want to find yourself, you know, going too far down it just to get to a place, and like, everyone rigs differently and has their own setup, and when you get into certain companies, they have their own way that they want to do it, and you can't really argue. You kind of have to just fall in line because their pipeline is set up a very specific way. You know, learn how to do it and know the basics, go down the rabbit hole, but don't. It's hard to sit there and say, I know rigging 110% when they throw something crazy at you that you've never done before, which will always happen. And of course, like rendering engines, like that's important too. There's several options out there, but I suggest sticking really close to V-Ray. V-Ray really, really has a lock on things. Their renderer is really good. It's getting faster all the time. Every new version has really robust features. they're dipping their toes into like cloud-based stuff and like real-time rendering engines to take on like the competitors like Redshift and stuff that have been popping up lately, and the other one's Arnold, and there's 100 renderers, but you can't go wrong if you know V-Ray. It's just a solid piece of software. Everyone uses it. It's been in every pipeline that I've ever been a part of. It's really, really hard to argue with. And not only that, but like when you get into companies, and this is really important, a lot of menial labor that may drive you nuts as an artist doesn't matter a whole lot when you're inside of a company, because they have software engineers that are going to write software to make your life easier. Because when you get into these big companies, the software engineers, they take a hold of like a specific problem, like this is slowing things down, this is causing us an issue, how do we improve it? And they'll just write software that will fix it. Stuff to automate entire processes. The click of a button and it'll do 10 steps worth of work in like 2 seconds. You need to break out an EXR and Nuke, great. It'll just fucking spread it all out for you, and you can render out each pass individually, and it's not a big deal, right? And you can load 100 passes into an EXR inside V-Ray and then go into Nuke and break them all out, and you have control over every single aspect of that image, all the way down to the nitty gritty. Like, it's crazy. And you need that kind of control, which brings me to compositing. Compositing is probably the biggest one, because right now After Effects is the low tier. Like, everyone loves to learn After Effects. It's used everywhere. It's really important. You should absolutely know it, but you also need to know that the higher up you go, the less seriously After Effects gets taken as a compositing package. That is just the nature of the beast. It's a great piece of software if you're a singular artist and you got to sit down and really pound this stuff out and make it good. But if you need a shot that has like 100 CG elements with like 10 different EXR passes, and each EXR element has like 15 render passes from cryptomats to normals and raw data and reflection, refraction, and everything in it, After Effects cannot handle that stuff. It's not actually built to handle it. It's a real big problem. EXRs, like, they're such an industry standard, and like they just can't break them out efficiently. It slows After Effects to a crawl, and it's really damning for the program until they get that problem solved. But Nuke handles it no problem. Nuke can just dive into an EXR, pull all 100 passes out, you can start throwing your comp together, and you got complete and utter crazy control. Like, you can bring in a 3D object as an alembic pass and then turn the motion blur off of your rendered image, and then use the 3D object through a camera space that you exported out of the 3D program, line it up and create your own motion. It's fucking crazy shit. It's crazy stuff that Nuke can do. It's really impressive. And even a tier up from there is Flame, and like, Flame artists, I've only met like 5 in my entire career. It's like a mystery, but it's another program that just does crazy stuff. Real-time composition stuff. It's just really impressive. There's always levels. After Effects, Nuke, Flame, right? You gotta just know that there's a hierarchy to this stuff. No matter how many After Effects plugins you have, you will never be able to comp that shot as good as Nuke can, because Nuke just has more inherent control. And After Effects is very focused on other shit, apparently. Like, the fact that it can't handle EXRs really is one of the driving factors of it being sucked out of, like, large industry and large-scale composition work. Like, it's just really damning. But it's fantastic for a million other things. Like, if you just need something to get thrown together real quick, After Effects is definitely the program to go to, because it's super fast and effective, just like Photoshop. Right? Why would you texture in Substance Paint when you can do it in Photoshop? Photoshop's great, everyone knows it. Substance Paint is just better. It's just better. 3D tracking. I learned 3D tracking on Buju. Buju is the worst 3D tracker. Your other 2 options that you can take seriously would be PFTrack and Synthesize. And I will tell you that even though I like PFTrack a lot, and I think it's a great tracker, and you should absolutely learn it because you can pick it up in a weekend, Synthesize is becoming more of an industry standard. More people use it. It's a great, reliable piece of software. The interface looks like it's from 1995, but doesn't matter. It just works. It works really well. And if you see what it can do, then it's like I kind of struggle on a shot in PFTrack, and then I see somebody track something impossible in Synthesize, and you go, how did you do this? You just got to learn it. It's just like any piece of software. You just got to learn it. It's hard and it will suck, but it's just something you got to do. And the last thing I'm going to mention here, if you're really taking visual effects seriously as of right now, The 800-pound gorilla in the room as far as software that you should probably know and that will make you valuable is Houdini. Houdini is taking over the game because it can do literally anything. Anything at all that your mind gets to, it's absolutely incredible as a software package. You need fluids, explosions, lakes, blood, a building to crumble, a world to fall apart. It can do literally anything at all. It's really impressive, truthfully. But out of all the programs that I've listed, it is by far the hardest to learn because it is outside the realm of how you learn everything else. It's visual coding, essentially. And it's all node-based, and all of the names are kind of weird and stupid with like flops and blops and sops and...
And what I want the sphere to do is move across in x-axis. For this, I need variables which control the play bar. Search for global expression variables. Here, you can see $F is the current frame. I can go to x-axis, type in $F. As you can see, it's yellow in color. If I type in anything...
It's got its own language built into it that makes it really kind of impenetrable from the outside, but when you just dive in and you start to learn anything about it, you just see how utterly flexible it is and what incredible stuff it can do. Like I myself am having trouble learning Houdini, but I sit around Houdini artists all day. Incredible. Just absolutely incredible. It'll blow your mind the stuff that they can make. But, man, I'll tell you, that program, there is a curve. It's really tough and really kind of heartbreaking. I wish that it was assembled in a way that was a little bit more understanding. I wish that people who knew it knew how to explain it to other people better without drowning them in terminology. But if you go down that road, if you just take the time, put your best foot forward and learn it, you will have an immediate foothold. Like you will have immediate value. Good Houdini artists are hard to come by, and they are wanted more than most anything else, because so much of what's happening in visual effects now is all simulations. Large-scale, incredible simulations that have just been impossible, and that program makes it happen. Like, you're not going to do any of that stuff in Fume and Phoenix, which, again, you should probably know those plugins. They're super handy. Phoenix more than Fume. Fume is kind of tripped and fell on its face, but not like Phoenix is a perfect angel either, but there's just 1,000 things you need to know. So if you want to go into a recap, if you're going to go into modeling, ZBrush is your answer. ZBrush is probably the most important one. Down from that, 3D Studio Max, Maya, Modo, that's fine. 3D tracking, I'd say go with SynthEyes. Below that, PFTrack, and don't ever touch Buju, it's trash. Don't roto. You won't ever get this. Don't be a roto artist. Animation, just do the best animation you can in whatever program you have access to. It's not really going to matter a whole lot. Just focus on the pillars of animation. Fluid movement. No one's going to care what you made it in. They're just going to care that you understand motion. So don't worry about it. Rigging, same story. Max Maya. Pick your poison. Whatever helps you get to the animation portion faster, do that. Lighting, rendering, I just say V-Ray. Just go all in on V-Ray no matter what software you're using. You can't go wrong. It's good to know. Everyone uses it. Stick with it. Texturing, Substance Painter, number 1. Photoshop, number 2. But everybody knows Photoshop, so Substance Painter. Learn it. Composition, After Effects, then Nuke. Learn them both. Know them both. Have them in your arsenal. Be more valuable. Should you be a specialist or should you be a generalist? Now, I can only speak from anecdotal experience here, but I have found that I, as an artist, have been much more valuable in the long term being a generalist. When you know a lot, when you can do a lot, when you can handle a lot, it just makes you more valuable. It makes you a person that a company is going to want to have in the room, because since it's such a collaborative process, right? Since it's any single shot in a company can get like 5 hands on it. Like, it'd be like, here's the guy who modeled the thing, here's the guy who tracked it, here's the guy who lit it and rendered it, and here's the guy that's comping it, right? If you have the ability to do any one of those steps really, really well, you're going to get in. But if you can do all those steps by yourself, then you are much more valuable. Because if anyone is ever gone, if any time like the company gets slow or has to downsize or it's during the holiday and a guy that made the thing just isn't around, you can dive into each and every one of those packages. You'll know what you're doing. You can figure out what they did, when they did it, how to fix it. and then get it back out and into the pipeline by yourself. And that becomes really, really valuable, especially in smaller companies. Now, when you get to the big dogs like ILM and Weta and like huge companies with hundreds of employees, then like you're probably not going to have to ever be a generalist. You're going to get in, you're going to be a modeler. New things to model are going to pop up in your shotgun every single day. And then when they come, you make them. By the deadline, you kick them out, and then more things come. And then it's a pipeline. You're just making cheeseburgers. Like, you're making 3D cheeseburgers, man. Like, that you get into a big company, and that's how it has to be. You know, because they can't have you walk over to the animation department and then walk over to the rendering department. No, but in a smaller company, when things are kind of done on the TV level, or even some movies, a fair amount of movies, depending on what company you're at, it increases your value. It makes you a person that they're going to want to keep around. Modelers are a dime a dozen, but a modeler who can track, animate, light, render, and comp, they're not a dime a dozen. Those guys are kind of special, and when they're good at any of those things, they're really special. So you can do whatever you want. It's entirely up to you. Anecdotally, from my perspective, I have found being a generalist makes it a little bit easier for a company to keep you around in the long term. A couple of schools you might want to look into, just stuff that I know. I went to the Art Institute. Now, the Art Institute has kind of become like a puppy mill for, art student diplomas. And they just kind of push people out, like run them through the system, push them out, promise you the world. And then when you get out in it, you realize you don't know a whole lot because, when I went to school, it was a really long time ago, but they didn't even teach After Effects. It wasn't even a class. I had to learn After Effects on my own at my first job from another guy who knew After Effects really well, and I drove him crazy. Like, that was a long time ago. I'm sure it's different now. I'm sure the Art Institute has probably changed a lot, except for the fact that they just got the shit suit out of them. It's a crapshoot, because it really depends on you as an artist. You always hear stories about a guy who quit his job as a bank teller and then picked up ZBrush, and then now he's working at Weta. Like, sure, stories like that happen. People who just change careers and pick this stuff up. But generally, it takes years and years of dedication and figuring it out and trial and error, and it's very, very difficult. You just got to do your best. If you're going to a university, take the classes seriously. Take the work seriously. Try hard to learn the software. Look up tutorials. Don't rely on your teacher having all the answers. They're not going to have all the answers. I work in an entire company of people that know everything about everything, and even they don't have the answers. But a good school, if you're in the LA area, is the Noman School of Visual Effects. That is a place where you can just find classes that are specialized in what you want to do and stick to them. Look them up, see the pros and cons, make your own decision. It's anybody's guess. But ultimately, no matter where you go to school, it's going to come down to you. How much work and time you put into it. And I promise you're going to put a lot. It takes a lot. And then when you get into the industry, it's going to take a lot more. So prepare yourself. So say you made it out of school, you learned all the software, everything's going great, and you're ready to push out into the working world. And this is the last bit of advice that I'm going to give for this entire thing. The number one bit of advice is, please don't be an asshole. This industry, it's like being on the battlefield, right? Like, you are surrounded, it's just the deadlines are harsh, the time crunch is harsh. The industry is filled with tough situations, tight deadlines, long hours, and you're in that situation, you're in that zone with dozens of other artists, right? Sharing a space, making it work, making it all happen together as a team. And if you're a real piece of shit, no one's going to want you there. No one's going to want to be around you. Will not matter how good you are as an artist. You could be the greatest ZBrush modeler ever, and you will only ever get to make your own personal work, and it can go on ArtStation next to all that other cool stuff. Because if you're a piece of shit, no one's going to want you. Think about it. It builds a toxic environment. So don't be that person. Look out for your fellow artists. If you see them struggling, teach them something. Help them out. Make it easier on everyone, right? Don't be a person who's just in it for themselves, right? Like, I don't care, you can suffer, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, man, that's not the right attitude. We are all in this together. You are a part of a team. You're going to have to learn as much as you can from as many people as you can, as fast as you can. So do your best to be helpful. Show others stuff that you think might help them. You just don't want to have an asshole sitting next to you making every bit of your life harder as you work 12-hour days in the middle of crunch to get a deadline done, and you're just next to a person who's just a piece of shit. And we all know those people. And if you're in school right now of any kind and you can just look out across the people next to you and go, oh man, there's one. That guy sucks. Sure, they probably do. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But you can't bring that to work. You can't bring it to the space where other artists are trying to work. It really, really like brings the entire atmosphere down. It makes nobody enjoy their work. Learn as much as you can from as many people as you can and do your best. Don't push yourself too hard. Keep your health in mind. Keep your sanity in check. Try not to bring your problems to work, and try not to let work become a problem in your life. And that'll get you by, and everything will be fine. Just don't you ever fucking miss a deadline, ever.